Welcome to Glowing Success. I'm Heidi, your host. On this show, we dig into aesthetics, marketing, business strategy, wellness, and iridology. Whether I'm flying solo or sitting down with some incredible guests, this is your space to learn, grow, and build something beautiful. So let's get into this next episode. Welcome back to Glowing Success. I cut off 5 inches of my hair yesterday and I feel weightless now. And I know, it's hair. It grows back. But here's the thing. I had been thinking about it for a while, probably more than even a couple months, maybe even a year. So I had talked myself out of it. I had been like, no, I'll, keep my hair. I'll do all the things. But then I was always hating something about my hair. It was too long. It was too scraggly. It was too hot, all the things, right? And then I just did it. I just was like, I'm sick of this going back and forth and thinking about it. I'm just doing it. Because honestly, it really probably wasn't about my hair, right? And it's about how we hold on to things that no longer serve us because they feel safe. I don't know if that resonates with you, but I know that, this is so much deeper than me just getting a fresh haircut with shorter hair now. This is a new beginning, new things. If you have been listening to the podcast, I have talked about some transformation that I'm doing recently with adding on iridology and taking Reiki classes. This haircut it really truly was about letting go. Even if it was just 5 inches, but it was about finding a different part of me and uncovering it, right? So obviously I felt lighter. Obviously I felt, refreshed, but I did feel a little bit more like me. I was like, oh, this is actually the new me going forward. So, I want to say transformations, they don't always look like a big dramatic moment like that though. Sometimes they look like 5 inches on the ground in the salon, like what I did. And sometimes they look like slowly maybe taking a service off your service menu. Or sometimes they look like learning something new that you actually have been thinking about for a while and just taking that first step, right? But I will say transformation in general, I think is a practice, and I think what makes it possible to make those transformations happen every single time is trusting your intuition. So I'm going to give you a couple tips because I have been also tapping into trusting my intuition lately with other different ways, but I want to give you some practical ways that you can do it because trusting your gut, trusting your intuition, it's great advice from coming from another person until you're standing in the middle of a decision and you actually need to trust that intuition. So here are some ways that I have kind of trusted mine. Number one, so notice what keeps on coming up. So, the idea that you can't stop thinking about, or the thing that kind of woke you up at night, or the thing that you can't sleep at night, or even, something that you have been just thinking about over and over and over again. Don't ignore that pattern. Sometimes that pattern can be, anxiety, things like that, but, look at it. Think about why you're doing it. Like for me, for instance, I thought about cutting my hair for a while now. I had a Pinterest board full of haircut ideas. So I needed to pay attention to why that even came up and, things like that. Okay. Number 2, pay attention to your body, not just your brain. And this will kind of help the first one make sense. So when something is right or it feels right, there's usually a physical sense of you feel light, you feel airy, you feel like a sort of expansion, relief, excitement, things like that. And then when something doesn't feel right or it's wrong or it's pushed, there's a contraction, right? And a tightness. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, that contraction and tightness can just be from fear, but deep dive into what that fear is too. And sometimes you'll pay attention to if that's your intuition telling you. Number 3, give yourself a deadline on the overthinking. So sometimes when we're stewing something over or thinking, we're noticing this pattern or thought, I'm not saying rush into it, but I am saying at some point you've gathered enough information, you saw the pattern, you trusted those feelings in your body. You have to really do it. Take action, set that date, make that call for that appointment or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? So one thing I've learned is the clarity that you're kind of seeking out, it usually comes after that decision that you have thought about for a while. Okay. So number 4, look at your own track record. And this is something that I had to really pay attention to and tap into. So every time I've trusted myself, with either big decisions, small decisions, what have you, I had to pay attention to what happened. And generally speaking, if you can remember back to times where you really trusted your intuition, your instincts, whatever you want to call it, it was a good decision to make. You were like, yeah, man, I really wish I had trusted more of those decisions, right? So, look at your own track record. Sometimes it's not going to feel logical, but your intuition has, receipts, so to speak, right? So check in on them. Okay, talking about new stuff, transformation, things like that, I want to actually update you guys on some guests that I have coming up that I'm super excited about. First up, I'm bringing on someone who built a skincare brand from the ground up. So if you are thinking about starting your own skincare brand, that is definitely a good episode to listen to. So stay tuned on that. And then I'm going to be having a conversation about iridology. So I'm actually chatting with the lady who inspired me to deep dive into it and go into all the information and start my certification. So that episode is probably going to feel like a full circle moment for me, but I cannot wait to share that one with you as well. So stay tuned on that. So whether it be cutting 5 inches off your hair or just, getting better about trusting your intuition, I want you to make that call. I want you to be brave and really do those things you've been thinking about. Trust that new version of you that already knows, all the things. And of course, I'll see you next week. And thank you for listening.